we're live now, so if you want to check in with hubby.
He's still at work.
Oh, don't get him in trouble.
He's the boss.
He don't need to get in trouble. And the bad thing would be over our video. They probably say, okay, it's okay. Anybody that watches that. And I think I wrote Mayor on your book who's going to do our invocation for us, which I think is out.
Yep.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
Hey, good to see you, sir.
Herb.
Hi, how are you?
Deborah.
Howdy, sir. Howdy, sir. I'm shocked that nobody dressed in Halloween. I'm joking. We're scary enough.
This week or next week?
It's next week.
Next Thursday.
Yeah. I'll be at a meeting.
Right. You know, Mary's not very nice. Always happy about everything.
Uh-huh.
You should go.
Mhm. I know. We used to have such fun with kids. Mm-hmm. That's getting closer to home. You don't want to do that. If you think about it, it's like, no, it's getting too close.
So you'll know that Scott has assured me that our live stream will now be working.
Yes.
It will be working.
I'm like,
I don't know if
no.
it's on penalty of death or what.
Oh,
Yes. On penalty of death, the live stream will be working. Yep, thanks.
My husband will check it and blow up my phone if it's not. Okay.
Yep.
we are live right now, so.
All right, great. Thank you.
It's working.
Paul got exposed to COVID. You know that?
Yes, and David is going to be a few minutes late.
Oh,
And Scott, I'm going to need you to present the mayor's report, if that's all right. You should have the,
Yeah, I need to find that. I'll pull it up.
okay.
yeah.
How was the jump? How was the jump? That's awesome.
You got to go on
I'm really sorry I missed that. I did see pictures.
Flashbacks of the fun you had in the military.
I tell you, I only do it for my mom. I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
The things you do for your parents, huh?
I do, yeah.
I'll stay as the medical response on the ground supporting you.
Yeah, for my mom's, one of her birthdays that I'm not allowed to say, everybody went and jumped out with her, and we all made up T-shirts. And mine said, "Mom said jump." I said, "How high?" She said, 25,000 feet. And Carrie said, "I'll meet you on the ground."
I'm going to play an Irish song for you.
All right.
Salute to the armed forces and the airport.
All right. You ready?
Yes.
All right. We're going to call the meeting to order at 5:31. We'll begin with a roll call.
Sheena Martinez, District 1.
Paul Carey is excused absent.
Bill King, District 3.
And Councilman Mers is going to be a little bit late.
Herb Dyer, District 5.
Darren Schroeder, Mayor. Please stand with me for the pledges of allegiance and then remain standing for the invocation. First to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible, All right, and we have Pastor David Simonson from the church.
Please pray with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather peacefully tonight and discuss the governance of our community. I pray for our elected leaders and all those who are gathered with them, that you may guide us by your wisdom and by your grace. I pray for your protection over all those traveling tonight on our increasingly busy roads. I also pray for rain and its reminder of your abundant provision and miraculous love. In the name of your Son, my Savior, Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor. Be seated. The next item is citizens' comments. Would anybody like to speak for citizens' comments? Please. And if you can, state your name and address for the record, and we just ask that you keep comments to 3 minutes.
Sounds great. My name is Brianne Hart. My address is on County Road 4614. I'm actually just here really quickly representing a group of moms who would like to sponsor a city council and park and rec committee appreciation day at the Castroville Regional Park. Just a tiny bit of background. I'm not a member of either of the boards, but my children have participated in soccer for 20 plus years. And there are always so many compliments that you guys don't get to for all these years, and so much appreciation. So this group of moms and I kind of rallied our collective efforts. And so I have an invitation here that I can pass around with some explanations, but basically we would like to have you, Mayor, if possible, and as many members of the Park and Recs Committee and City Council can make it, be there 30. We have a very short ceremony. Participate in as many games as you can. We have a tent that we'll have with a brunch and just an opportunity for the community to see you and you to see how grateful everybody is.
That's really awesome. Thank you for doing that.
I'll pass this up to you if you mind.
Yes, ma'am.
And Scott did let us know about that, sent out invitations to make sure that it was on the calendar. So
Saturday the 2nd, right? In the morning.
November 2nd, okay.
great. Well, thank you so much.
My niece plays as part of the group. Maureen Kilser. Oh, yeah.
A lot.
Mhm.
That's good. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And your daughter's names?
This is Kenzie and Hadley. We both play.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming. All right. Would anybody else like to speak? All right. Next item is the consent agenda. Consent agenda, we have minutes for September 24th, 2024, regular call meeting. We have adoption, the resolution establishing the official newspaper, matching funding for airport drainage hydrology survey project, adopt resolution for TxDOT planning grant. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Great.
I had a question. I wasn't at the last council meeting, so I wasn't at the last council meeting, so I probably should vote on that.
It's up, I mean, it's up to you if you,
Doesn't mean can count.
No.
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Next item, Scott, do you have the mayor's report up?
Pulling it up now.
Okay. I'm actually going to go back to one of the things that's on here. It's actually the third item. As he's pulling that up, I wanted to make sure that I did a bit of a clarification. So on here, you'll see trunk or treat, but this is actually trunk or treat is a part of the Boo Bash. The Boo Bash is, it's going to be where, this 4:30 to 7:30. They're going to have the Boo Bash. We have, how many trunks did she say we had? We have a total of 40 trunks, including mine. We have a photo booth and contest, touch a truck where the kids will have a chance to touch some like big trucks, face painting, tattoos, pumpkin toss, hopefully
That would be
temporary
me.
tattoos. Oh, you're doing the pumpkin toss? Huh? Are we tossing it at you or are you tossing it at us? Witch's hat and toss it. So everything is free except, of course, the food trucks. Please, parents, bring flashlights. The lighting is a little bit limited, so we wanted to make sure that everybody has that opportunity to not trip over stuff. So I just wanted to make sure we expounded on that. There's a lot of time and effort involved that goes into this, so I think it's been a really successful, phenomenal event. So please commend us for that.
I had it up on my computer. As soon as you said, let's look at it, it's doing this weird stuff where it won't respond to anything. It's not showing you anything. So
Maybe you shouldn't touch electronics.
Volunteers to help out with audio visual. All right, as he's bringing it up, I'll start it.
they're Microsoft products.
Yeah, that's probably, I don't know who makes that, John.
Real thing, Deborah. Joe's not really bad, but starting to freeze and it's metallic,
And what now?
voice metallic sounding.
That's probably a bandwidth issue, though.
Maybe. Of course, it always looks really good over here. I mean,
So as he's bringing that up, the first thing that we're going to talk about is the ongoing UDO effort, comprehensive plan, downtown plan. We're going to talk about some tentative dates. I want to express again, we're going to walk through this with plenty of time for public consumption, public input. There's nothing, we're going to put some tentative dates up here, but just understand that as we get feedback from the public, if people feel like more time, we're going to take as much time as it requires and wait and not do anything if we have, but we want to make sure that he has plenty of time to consume it and talk to their representatives about it. We've already gotten some feedback about certain portions that have come in. So go ahead and go to the first one. Okay. Unfortunately, Lloyd's Place does not look like that this year.
We'll see if it advances. It doesn't look, it doesn't look very good.
All right.
And you
Next
want
one.
Which one? That one.
So it's just got some additional detail. If you look at the castroville.com/mysocialpinpoint.com, you can see all of this information. This talks about where we are right now. And it says, go back one.
Okay.
It says adoption winter 2024, 2025. So leaving it a little bit open, but we wanted to get some tentative dates up. Go ahead to the next.
Yeah, this is what I was going to talk about. This is going to change a little bit.
Yep.
These dates we're still working on. We've got to issue notices to everybody that zoning is going to change, et cetera. So these dates are a little bit flexible, but I believe the last email I had, which we got today. Hot off the presses, was like November 13th.
I think we're going to do it. We'll do the first part of it the day of the first city council meeting in November, and then there'll be a public. I think we're going to do it that day before city council meeting, and then the following day at the P&Z meeting as a part of that. So it'll be 2 days in there. So
So that's not reflected in this list, but we'll be getting those dates out just as soon as possible.
And what date did you say it? November 12th, council meeting?
right, it'll be the day. It'll start at I think we said it was 3:00 the day of the city council meeting, so that some people can come and see it during the day, and then we'll have it the following evening along with the P&Z. So a part of this, as we go through the zoning, because the names of the zones will change, we're actually going to send out a letter to every single address inside of Castroville to say, this is what your current zoning is, and this is what your future zoning is, just to make sure that everybody's aware of that and have that as context as they go through it. There are several different efforts that are going through. We have, like the Conservation Society is doing a run through to look at impacts to the historic core. And so we have a lot of people that are looking at this, and hopefully we can come together, compile all of the questions, and make sure that we've got all of the feedback so we can make a great decision that represents the community.
And you said the following, that's not the 13th, that's another day.
That is going to be another day. We're going to put, I think we're giving, I think we said 4 weeks notice on that one or 2 weeks. It was at least 2 weeks. I think we were striving for 4.
Yes.
Usually that 2 weeks is a good time frame because if you send it out too early, then people forget about it. If you send it out too late, then they don't know about it, can't plan for it.
We're trying to get notices out. Like we have to get all that planned this week. So that's why we're trying to, the dates are a little bit in flux. You know, we're looking at final adoption. We were looking at the end of the year or possibly January, but that may get pushed till March, depending, because we want to make sure that we give plenty of time for review, citizen engagement, involvement, et cetera.
Mhm.
So we're probably going to still play this a little bit.
Perfect. Great.
Yeah.
All right. Next slide. And there is, if anybody doesn't know how to use QR codes, had a question? Yes, please. Yes, please.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to ask a question. I understand the zoning issues are going through, but when will the public be able to see actually the draft ordinance?
That
goes with that zone?
that is,
I think those are going to be shown. It's kind of like what we just did, where there was.
I think it's that meeting, isn't it,
Yeah,
in
so
November?
we
Yeah.
put all those maps out, et cetera. At the last meeting, we're doing the same thing with the code. So it'll be at this next public meeting is when the code is going to be.
The reason I asked that, sir, it's very difficult to answer zoning changes without seeing
Exactly.
the code itself to see how it works. So they kind of go hand in hand.
Yep, absolutely. And that's one of the things we want to make sure, like with P&Z, we're going to get that out ahead of time. And there's going to be we're not pushing anything through. So there's going to be plenty of time for people to look at it and ask questions about it. And honestly, we expect that we'll get it fairly right, but we don't expect that we'll get it perfect. And so we want to make sure that we're getting that feedback and seeing we're going to miss something. So let's just make sure that we've got enough time to catch those things and rectify them.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
I don't see anything on the schedule that indicates that anybody in the staff is doing some kind of an audit to compare the 3 ordinances that we're going to replace with the new one. I'd like to see something that shows where everything went. Either it was brought forward in the new ordinance and here's where it is and here's how it was changed, or if it was decided that it was going to be left out because it was obsolete or whatever the reason, we could see that. But it's very hard to read the new ordinance and in your mind go back and say, yeah, okay, we covered everything that was in the 3 old ones except for these things that we took out on purpose. I mean, you got 60 years of work in these 3 ordinances, and I just like to see some kind of an audit.
Right. So that is my expectation that we'll get that as well. Right now, what they've done is like on the zoning map, they have on the my social pinpoint, there's actually a map where you can do like a slide across and see on your individual property, like, and around you, what the current zoning map looks like. And you can slide it across and see what the new zoning map looks like. It's fairly well the same with a few different anomalies. I don't want to get into too much of it right now, but like the smaller lots, and this is one of the things that's up for discussion, the ones that are smaller inside of historic core were labeled I think they were labeled the same or zoned the same as like River Bluff and Country Village as those kinds, that one, just because we either coded them like that or zoned them like that, or we zoned them like a existing non-conforming. So this was just it's a good visualization. So we'll get a chance to walk through some of that stuff. But to your point, it's looking at what was allowed, what will be allowed, and that is my expectation as well. I think it's a lot more helpful. I don't believe we're doing the same thing with the comprehensive plan. We have several different iterations. The comprehensive plan is always an iterative thing. It's about it's supposed to be every 5 years. It's been every 5 to 10 years. We have history of it for about 25 years that we have documented on the website. So we can look at what portions of that need to be updated or make sure that there's nothing in the previous comp plans that isn't included. So that's not that's more of a planning document than a zoning document. And then the downtown master plan, I don't know. I think that was incorporated into some other ones, but not to quite the same detail that we're looking at with this.
So the one big thing is the zoning and the actual zoning maps and the zoning changes. Okay, so also on November 2nd, in conjunction with the other stuff that's going on over at the park, please be aware that we will have a lot of traffic because we have the city yard sale on November 2nd. It's a great thing to support a great mission of the Castroville Nip and Tuck, and she's been diligent. Kyle McVeigh has been diligent with this for I don't even know how decades.
At least.
Yeah, she's been working on this for a very long time and slowly but surely raising money and trying to do things that are good for taking care of the animal populations that we have. So that it's a good thing to support. If you need any additional information, I think we've got it up in the front in the city hall right up here at the service desk. Next item. So, of course, Old Fashioned Christmas, December 6th and 7th. The Castroville French Heritage Night is November 13th. So we have, Scott, can you talk? I didn't hear exactly. Do we have like a section or how?
Yeah. So
What have we already figured out with that?
yeah, there's a QR code to buy tickets at a discounted price. I believe they're $20 a piece. The city has acquired some tickets, and those tickets are available for our boards, commissions, council, and employees. And they're going to be given the opportunity to buy additional ones if they want to try to get bring kids, etc. along with them. We're going to have the dancers out that night. McKnight Title is our sponsor of the event, so grateful to them to help us do that. There's going to be a pregame party, so anybody who buys these tickets through the discounted site or any of the folks that have been invited that the city is sponsoring or that McKnight is sponsoring can participate in that pregame party. And the Alsatian dancers are going to be there to welcome not just us, but apparently all of the Spurs fans.
That's awesome.
To the game. So we're very, very excited about this opportunity to kind of get Castroville, shine a spotlight on Castroville as a French heritage city in the region at such a big event.
Great.
So that's coming up November 13th.
I appreciate the fact that you guys are looking out for these kind of opportunities to really celebrate the heritage and the culture.
Yeah. So if you're interested in tickets and you can't find the QR code or it's not because it should be posted, it's on our website or on our social medias, etc. Just contact City Hall and ask for Patty Ayers, and she'll direct you where to buy the tickets.
Great. All right. Next.
That's it.
That's it. Perfect. One thing that we didn't get on here also, don't forget about Veterans Day over at the American Legion Hall coming up on the 11th, of course, as always does. They do a fantastic job with that. They are looking for, I think there are still some volunteer opportunities if people want to help out with setup and tear down and such.
And tied in Old Fashioned Christmas is the candlelight tour that night.
And the candlelight tour, is that already sold out? Not yet. Great. So if you want to get your tickets, make sure that you contact the Castroville Conservation Society. Is that correct? And that's on the website? Okay. Great. And I think that pretty much everybody around here already knows about it, but for any newcomers, it's a chance to tour some of the historic homes and buildings that are here. People open up these historic structures and talk about the story of the people that live there, how they came to acquire it, and it's a great way to see some of the history that's happened around here. 7 properties total.
And last year it was sold out. Last year it sold out. Last 2 years.
So buy your tickets quickly. All right, great. Next item is the board liaison reports. We'll start with what do we have? The Airport Advisory Board from September 9th and October 7th.
So September 9th, there was a conflicting meeting, so I was not able to go to that. And then I was laid up on the 7th of October.
Okay.
But their reporting on their airport is that the airport's initiated 2 projects. The first, a request for TxDOT Aviation for a 90-10 share grant funding to conduct a hydrological study of the airfield for drainage and stormwater mitigation. A resolution should be before council in October. Just 1/8 of an inch of water presents a safety hazard, including hydroplaning. And then the second, a request to AT&T for removal of the above-ground telephone line service along with the east side of the ramp. It's another safety hazard, particularly for the skydiving landing zone.
Great, thank you. Let the record reflect that Councilman Mers is here at, what are we, 5:52? Thank you for making it. I appreciate that. Next item is the Historic Landmark Commission from September 17th and October 21st. Councilman King.
September 17th, there was three agenda items that day. Two of them were, one of them, again, this is really changing because all of a sudden we opened up the area of the properties that come to the Landmark Commission, and it's working very well. One of them was a simple enclosing a carport. The other one was building a new house on a vacant property. And the last one was someone asking the possibilities of them demolishing a house that was probably built in the early 1900s. And the first two were approved, and the third one was not something to vote on, but based on a consensus of the discussion that night, they recommended that the person not demolish the house, but to add on to it and extend it out, because that would be, even though it's not a Alsatian house, the colony's house, but it was, again, a very old, and it's a really nice looking house. So anyway, that worked. The one last night, again, working well, they approved one of them was a commercial building, Luigi's, the back porch, changing the awnings out there because it's not Luigi's anymore, but the property owner wants to stop some rain deterioration of the building. And then again was placing an accessory building on the property, and the third one was for construction of a privacy fence. So that's all working. Two other things that came up. Tim Hart discussed at the meeting last night, one of the big concerns with the Historic Landmark Commission and City Council is that when you buy a property here, you don't know that your house is under these regulations. And for instance, I was driving down the road today and saw a house that they just painted from totally change of color that should have come before the HLC. But what Tim Hart said is it's a very simple process that the city should hire our attorneys to develop and city council vote on it. And what it is, it puts a kind of like a deed restriction on just, so by address, every house in the historic district by address, and it's just one document, you just list these addresses and says that this is under our historic ordinance. And that's all you have to say. That way, when the property is sold, then a title company will pull that from the county because it will, and I'm sure our attorney probably knows more about this than anything, but it's a very simple process, but the city should ask that. So I'm going to, at the next council meeting, I'm going to ask a discussion and action by city council to engage the city council or the city attorney to draft this document.
I think that's really smart. When I purchased my house, because it has the historic cemetery on it, it was nice because they said, okay, so you have this here. These are the things that you're obligated to, and don't tear it down. Let people have access to it. So it's and it was very specific. So it's letting people know when they buy the property, because there have been some people that they had no idea.
Correct. And most people don't. In fact, that was the home demolition. He said, why didn't someone tell me this when I bought the property?
Yeah.
And so it brought it back forward again. The second thing they discussed related to the UDO is because some discussion last night, one property owner reached out and wanted to know how his property is not in the historic district, but he wants it's across the street, but he wants to bring it in because it will increase his property value when it comes time to sell it. Because typically, if your house is in a historic district in the San Antonio area, for instance, the property value goes up. So if someone wanted to voluntarily bring their property in, and the discussion it's very cumbersome process to do now, because you have to, just like we're doing with the UDO, you got to send out notices, you got to do all of this. But if it's tied into the UDO, because basically all someone has to do is when they see the new zoning, then they could just request, hey, instead of this zoning, I would like this zoning if possible. And the thought was that that's possible, but that would be something that our consultants could tell
Yeah,
us
we'll
if
need
that's
to-
true or not.
You'll need to have the attorney weigh in on that. It really kind of depends on, so it's one thing to put it in a zoning district. It's another thing to put it in a historic district. The historic district was originally identified at like the boundaries of it are based upon the historic significance of the homes that are in those boundaries. So if you have a home that doesn't meet whatever that requirement is, then they aren't going to be historic. And
So in the historic overlay, that's not completely true. So we just need to look into that.
right.
Right, because there's some properties, for instance, the one next door to me, Carter Brown's, it's not in the historic district, it's in that Highway 90 district. But if it was brought into the historic district, because it's behind the store, it's not on Highway 90. But other properties, for instance, if you actually look at the historic district, it doesn't match our historic zoning district, because those properties to the far north, around Kenny Park area, that was in the historic district, but it's not in our historic zone. And then also the ones down kind of in Darren's area, there's that little block in there that's in the historic district, but it's not in our historic zoning district. So if people were in those, wanted to volunteer, and that's what they were asking, if the city could somehow make citizens aware that that's a possibility, if it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that also came from the, and I was designated to ask city council those two questions, and that's the end of my report.
Okay, thanks. And we'll talk about more about that in future agenda items. All right, next one is the Library Advisory Board from September 12th and October 10th. Councilman Dyer.
The library board had two meetings, one in September, one in October. We're very fortunate that we have the librarian that we have. She's doing an outstanding job, and she inherited a mess, an absolute mess. This is on par probably with what the mess we had when we switched police chiefs. If you recall how difficult it was when we switched police chiefs and learned that everything was not like we thought it was. So Beth Farley has got a lot of challenges, and she's doing a great job. And she has a very good library board. I think the members on the board now are very interested. They're all driven to try to solve these problems. We still have some vacancies. So if you have any friends that are interested in trying to make the library better, we would certainly encourage them to volunteer to be on the Library Advisory Board. We've got a lot of significant technical issues in the library that are making it almost impossible to deliver the services that we wanted to deliver. A lot of our computers are not fully functional. There's some software issues that are being worked on, and the problems we're aware of them, and they are going to get repaired in due time. We have a lot of security issues, infrastructure issues that the city administrator is working on helping the librarian to fix. And we just have a lot of problems. So they're looking forward. They're trying to get the documentation in place. Many of you may have heard, for the first time in 50 years, our library is not certified by the state of Texas because we failed to apply. And we didn't find that out till after we lost the last director, which was kind of shocking. So anyway, at the moment, we're not a certified library, but we are working on trying to get it reestablished, and we will reestablish it in the next calendar year. It doesn't really affect a lot of the grants that we can still apply for, but it does have some effect on a few items that we can't apply for. So all in all, it's a good story because we know what the problems are, and everybody is focused on fixing them. And I hope in the next coming months I can give you a more optimistic report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Dyer. And then we have Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, September 18th and October 4th. Councilman Mers.
So on September 18th, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board met at their regularly scheduled meeting. They had some discussion on park rules and confusion about what's the status of golf carts and similar in the city. They discussed the process they would use to order their list of projects, to prioritize them, to help us in our CIP discussions later this year. And they canceled their regularly scheduled meeting for October and instead scheduled a special meeting for October. And that was on October 4th, which was a Friday morning. At that meeting, they did manage to form a quorum. They drafted a priority list for their parks projects. They expect to revisit that further and continue working on it at a specially called meeting this Friday.
Are they doing that through an update of the library master plan?
The Parks Master Plan.
I don't think they're doing
sorry.
a full update of the master plan. They're kind of taking some items off of it, or are they?
Well, it should be
No,
an update. Every time we do these kind of things, when we change priorities inside of any of our master plans, and I'm sorry about calling it the library. I mean, the library is great too, but parks are better. Well, right now.
They're utilizing the list that's in that Parks Plan, and you bring up an excellent point. We probably need to look at, that list is basically an addendum.
Right.
And so we need to, once we land on here's a prioritized list, that should then be used to update the plan and say, this is our updated plan.
And that should be any of them. If you look at the Parks Master Plan, it cost $25,000 to do that. We got a grant to take care of that. But those things are expensive, and it's way less. It's pretty much free. It takes time and effort if we update those and don't have to completely recreate them. We just gotten so far out of the last master plan that we really had to start
From scratch.
almost from scratch. I mean, we took a lot of the lessons learned, but it was really getting the community, because the priorities had changed. So we just need to make sure that with any of these, that we're getting it updated as we go. Great. All right. Thank you. And then Councilman Carey, he just brilliantly planned that there was no meeting in September or October, and he's not here, so that works out well. The final is the Economic Development Corporation. So we went over, I actually had to cut the meeting a little bit short. I got pulled out from work priorities. But Darren Ham had gone over some of the metrics and some of the learnings that he's done. It's really kind of interesting as he's found these different tools to understand how each one of our different events impacts us financially, where people are coming from, where they're going to. It helps us structure the way that we're approaching things based on the biggest impact. If we're trying to advertise for different events, it's making sure that we're getting in the areas where we're getting the most bang for our buck, and truly just understanding where in the community people are coming from. So I thought that was really good. I like the attention to how do we continue to leverage that. So there will be some other things. We haven't done a tremendous amount with the EDC. There's not a tremendous amount that we can do, but it is this constant effort of how do we make things better for our businesses. All right, next item is update and progress report on community center building project. For this, we have Noah Chang, Parks Director.
Good evening, board and council. So just a quick update. We got some responses back from the USDA on the October 8th, approving the bidding process, contractor selection, and project manual. A couple of follow-up things that we have to do are to submit the executed project manual, front-end documents, including the contractor contract, and then also we got a letter approving Lawrence Garcia as our resident inspector for this project. On October 11th, we also received from USDA closing instructions. We have to submit again that contractor contract, the notice of federal intent, and registration on the System for Award Management, or SAM system. Contractor contract updated is Frontera is working on their draft. They have it in front of their legal team. So they should be able to send it to us by the end of this week, if not early next week, for our review, and then we'll send it to our legal team. No fee updating. We have to get a survey done for that particular piece of property or that area where the community center is going to be, that footprint. We have the deed for the entire regional park, but I don't think we want to send that in because that's 166 acres that they would be able to, So we're getting that surveyed. We are in the process of getting it scheduled and then hopefully get that submitted here soon. So.
When are we looking at beginning and completing the project?
We don't have an exact timeline yet. Because they sent us the closing documents, we are very close to the end. I would like to say hopefully by the end, 4 weeks, within 4 weeks, get mobilization and construction started. But USDA has been very hesitant on giving us when we can start construction. So once we get that approval from USDA, we can go ahead and start construction there.
The longest lead time we have right now is on the survey, and I talked to Paul Carey. He's going to do that for us, and I talked to him today, and he's going to get it done as soon as possible. But we'll have to get that done, then file the no fee notice of federal interest. Everything else will go fairly quickly. We've already been working with, or I should say, Jonah's been working with Frontera to get that contract. We'll get that to our attorney for their review. Once we get it from them, we probably started that process over 2 weeks ago. So I'm hoping we'll have that very, very soon. So we're moving as quickly as we can, but our best estimate is within 4 weeks. That's what we would hope. I'll be honest though, I kind of thought that 4 weeks ago. But we've had a number of delays to the USDA. That's really been what has slowed us down is the USDA's process.
And you add in the election and then all the holidays, your best, I would think the beginning of the new year.
Yeah, it's possible.
That's reality.
Well, the unfortunate reality is that the USDA is tasked with all of these different grants. They're not staffed to manage it. So on one side, I say they're really good at delaying projects. On the other side, they got a lot on their plate. And I know that it gets confusing, and it's unfortunate that it impacts the community like this, but I really have appreciated how much you've stayed on top of that and made sure that you kept that interaction going proactively. So that's been very good.
Yeah, thank you.
One other update that Jonah and I didn't review today, but he's aware of is Councilman King's efforts to get. He had the idea to look at the Geneva Street. That's a paper street where we're putting in drainage. There's quite a bit of removal that will have to happen, excavation that will have to happen to make that project work. And he had the bright idea to look at that and see if that fill dirt could be used on this project, and it can.
Nice.
We had it tested, and so that should be a cost savings. I'm not anticipating a lot, as I know Councilman King's mentioned before. The minus sign is a lot smaller than the plus sign, and I think that really is true. But so that's another positive. Is we'll be able to use that dirt, and then the dirt that they're going to excavate the site where the buildings will be built. We'll be using that to fill our pond, but we're still waiting on TCEQ approval to do that. So I think that was a positive step in the right direction. Appreciate Councilman King's efforts in that regard.
Yeah, if you look at the plans, there's 5 feet of the existing dirt on the site that needs to be picked up and moved. So if we move that to the pond, that's a lot of dirt there. And then we can replace it with the stuff off Geneva. Because believe it or not, it's different kinds of material. One is the stuff where the pool is. It just happens to be what Nolan Ryan would say is, hey, you got to call it an old sham because of the cracks. That's the kind of soil. The stuff on Geneva Street is a sandy, silty, really low pH stuff, which is within the specification of what the specifications are.
And even if the minus signs are small, you save a few thousand here, a few thousand there.
Exactly right.
It adds up. So that's good that you're looking at those individual items. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Jonah.
Thank you.
Next item is consider and take appropriate action on adopting a resolution acknowledging the city of Castroville as the Alsatian capital of Texas for state recognition. I didn't see that Darren is here. Did you want to?
Yeah, I apologize. I thought this was on consent. So I was like, no, you don't be there. It'll be on consent. He had a conflict tonight. He's shooting some additional video for the city this evening. But real quick, I mean, this is something that I think some people thought we already had. So the capital of Texas designation, as you're probably aware, maybe you've been a tourist at other cities around Texas, there are something like 100 plus cities that have the Bluebonnet capital of Texas or the cowboy capital of Texas, I think Bandera is known as. All of those are official designations that happen at the Capitol, and you have to have a legislature to sponsor a bill to have that done. It's not a big deal. It's mostly formality, but the first step in that process would be a resolution, which is what tonight's about. I think, again, a lot of people thought that we were already, we've got this slogan, the Little Alsace of Texas. That is a trademarked, copyrighted slogan for the city. But we are not known as an official capital of Texas of any kind. So this would be the effort to become known as the Alsatian capital of Texas.
And I appreciate the fact that he was looking out for something like this. This is just something, as he was looking into different designations, he had looked into like a film-friendly location was one. And as he dug into this, he found that we weren't actually the official Alsatian capital of Texas. So, just looking out for that, I think that was really cool. That's smart. It's very proactive, and that's the kind of thing that we like to see.
And it's all about tourism and culture, cultural preservation. That's kind of the two-pronged purpose for this type of thing.
Well, honestly, the largest contingent of connection between Castroville and cities of origin or areas of origin have been with the Alsatians. And, it didn't start that long ago, honestly, but since it happened, it has been, I say not long ago, it's 60, 70 years. No, it's not been that long. It's only been about 60 or 70 years. But the fact is that there's a very close contingent, and I think it's something that honors the folks that really it means something to them both here and there. So I think that's really good to look at. So do I have a motion to, what is the actual motion here?
I move to authorize a resolution naming Castroville either at all as the Alsatian capital of Texas.
Great. Do I have a second?
Second,
Great. Any further discussion?
one question.
Yep.
Can a city have more than be known as, like, for instance, could we be
I don't know.
the poppy capital of Texas? Could we be the French capital of Texas?
Well, I will
It
say
can't be the
this.
poppy because that's already,
Yeah, Bluebonnet's taken, Poppies is taken. There's a number of them that are taken, and they do need to be unique. The state doesn't like to give more than one designation of the same kind to different ones, different cities. But as far as a city having more than one designation, I don't believe so. That doesn't sound right, but I don't know.
Well, the reason is I'd look into the French capital of Texas because we're the only French city in Texas that still survives. So, which, that's Alsatian, but there's French, just bigger thing. But no, I grew up, I would say yes on the Alsatian. But if we could also get the French capital, I'd say go for it.
would you want
Bigger
to,
tourism.
would you want to modify that to be the Alsatian, the French Alsatian? I think Alsatian is,
Yeah, because where Alsace is went back and forth between Germany and France.
they don't like the Germany part.
I understand that.
Yeah,
However,
we keep that quiet.
hey,
But no, it's
Alsace would cover both sides.
Yeah, it's in the but we, and I've mentioned this, but Castro is the only surviving French colony in Texas. So, but that's because it's Alsatian.
Right.
But at the time they came over here, it was French. So, but I would say go with the Alsatian. I think it's cuter, tourism wise. But if we could get a second one, I'd look into the French capital also.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. All right. Next item is consider and take appropriate action on adopting proposed amendments to the drought contingency plan, including a drought surcharge for excessive water use. For this, we have Kathy Adams.
Good evening. We're coming back to ask you to implement the surcharge and approve the changes to the drought contingency plan that we talked about previously.
Do you have a presentation for this?
I don't believe so. Is there a presentation?
Well, there's a presentation in
There's
the
one in the.
packet, but do we have one to put up on the?
It's the same one from last time, but I did send it in. I don't know.
It's in their packets. It's in
Okay.
there.
Well, do you want to
see if I can pull it up? Just give me
Yeah, if you don't mind.
if I can get things to work. It's like my computer isn't going away. Oh, it's a memory issue.
And just so you'll know, I checked the EAA and we are at 626.7 acre feet today. And to go into stage 5, you have to be below 625 acre feet. That 626.7 is a 10-day average. The average for today was 625.7 also.
You're talking,
So we are like 2 to 3 days out of being into stage 5.
Wow.
And part
We've
of
never been in stage 5. That's
Yeah.
kind of a big deal.
the part of the changes in the drought plan is to add restrictions for a stage 5, because we had never been in one, we didn't have it. So we've added it here
and to clarify, I believe that is depth at the well, not
at the EA, at the aquifer.
I mean depth in feet, not acre feet.
It's acre feet.
It is acre feet
Mhm.
because the depth, I believe, is in actual feet.
I don't know, but they measure the water by acre feet.
Okay.
So
That's
I'm
all
not
water
sure.
usage.
Oh, actually,
Yes.
I bet.
I'm actually currently on the Edwards board. So
I don't know why I didn't ask you.
I think I can answer a
Yep.
question on that's the mean sea level, the water level,
Yep.
J17 is the well that Fort Sam, when they use for nature.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was saying. I just want to make sure that we clarified. So it is the level,
It's a
water level above sea level.
And just for purpose of, just for the discussion, in the 50s, the lowest the city got, well, within Castroville, it only works. Got down to like 614, 612. Okay, so basically your pumps are set at 150 foot, and that's 136 feet down. So I just want to let you know, if it continues to drop, you might want to look at the depths of your wells.
Smart. Yeah, good idea. Great. Thank you, sir. All right. Did you find the presentation?
I did. And, there it is.
All right. Great. Thank you.
So it'll have the September date on it.
And Kathy, just a clarification, were you saying our usage was that? And at stage 5, our usage would have to drop to this?
It's the Edwards aquifer level.
Okay.
The Edwards aquifer tells us when we're in whatever
Right.
stage.
I knew that.
And
Okay.
so that's where we're at right now.
It doesn't have
So we're-
anything, it really doesn't have anything to do with our usage. It's just where that site is and what its water level is. And that water level dictates what level of drought the aquifer's in, and they declare that drought. And then all of the cities that are subject to the aquifer that pump from the aquifer, then we follow our plans that we've agreed with the aquifer will do for drought contingency. So that's
And that becomes the usage though, or what we are, when it hits those different water height criteria, then what we're restricted to is how much we can pump.
Yes. Well, we have mandated reductions where we strive to reduce our consumption by certain percentages.
Right.
So stage 3, stage 4, stage 5 each have target reductions, percentage reductions associated with them.
Right.
And stage 5 being worst is the highest.
So what I was asking Kathy is the numbers, the acre feet numbers that she was mentioning, was that the city, where the restrictions were going to be?
No, I think she just had the unit wrong. So at J17 well,
Yeah.
and you can
Yeah,
go
no,
on
I
the,
knew about that, yeah.
okay. So it's the level,
Yeah, I don't remember. Do you remember what our reduction is? It's a percentage. For
And stage 4 is 40, so I don't remember for sure, but I think it's 45 for stage 5. I will say that
44.
44.
So we go from 40 to 44%.
Okay.
I did today a quick comparison between this time last year and this time this year, where we're at as far as what we pumped from our wells, and we are actually lower by not quite 100 acre feet for
So
this year. So we have been doing better in conserving water this year.
And keep in mind, I think a lot of that has to do with our billing, with how much we're billing, and our meters are more accurate, and leaks are being detected quicker and that kind of thing. But the other thing to keep in mind is you have, at the beginning of the year, you have a certain amount of water rights that you're permitted to pump. And as you acquire more water rights, as they're delivered to the city, our ability to pump increases, right? So our agreement to reduce our pumpage by capacity is based not off of our current usage, really. It's based off of our allowed usage for the year. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So right now, as Kathy's already pointing out, we're already doing an okay job. I want to be very careful because
Yeah.
we're heading into a really bad drought, and everybody in here knows like the forecast for rain is not great. For this winter isn't supposed to be very wet.
Yeah, it's supposed to be below
And then
average.
after this winter, what will next spring bring? Will it be a wet spring or not? And how long will that last? And then you're right back where we are right now, which is in a very long summer with a lot of hot days and very little rain. So it's a pretty serious situation.
On this first screen is the thresholds we're recommending for when we start charging a surcharge. So a residential in stage 3 that is using more than 20,000 or more would have the surcharge
And that would be in a single month,
in a
correct?
single month. And for commercial, it'd be 80,000 would be their threshold in stage 3 only. And in stage 4, the thresholds go down because we have to reduce more. And we think the surcharge would help keep people from using so much. But for residential, it'd be 12,000 gallons, and for commercial, it'd be 40,000 gallons. And I think I've included, the second chart shows the usage up through September.
Do you want to go over those additional reductions or prohibitions?
Yeah, in stage 5, we would have no irrigation systems allowed, only watering with handheld hose, bucket, or watering can on the customer's designated day. So that's a pretty steep restriction because that would be 1 day per week.
Do you want to progress the slide so we can see the font?
This is at the bottom of that slide.
Yeah, I was
Yeah, the
looking.
one that we were on.
And then the use of water to wash impervious surfaces is prohibited. That means no driveways, no parking lots, no sidewalks.
But
About
car
car
washes, yes, I was going to say car washes.
They
are
have to
still-
get a waiver.
Do they know this?
They've been told.
Might want to remind.
That's a waiver to operate in both 4 and 5? Or
Not
5?
operate, but to wash down their parking and their surfaces.
No, we're talking about car washes. Are car washes allowed to operate in stage 5?
I don't think we did put anything about that in there. Let me go to stage 4 because we continue whatever's in place.
To my knowledge, we've never required them to close.
But if we're getting ready to hit stage 5,
Yeah, that's why I'm bringing, it's a
Yeah.
good policy question.
Yeah.
Is this something that the council wants us to entertain?
Well, I think that we talked about this before. One of the things that we need to look at is I really think that City of San Antonio has done a good job of regulating, or better job of regulating the car wash standards. So making sure that they're using a certain amount of reuse, how much they're actually going through. I think that they've got some pretty tight restrictions in there.
Yeah, they have a certification program.
Right.
That has the requirements for what they reduce and reuse. And I don't think the 2 on the west side have the capability, but the other one does.
I believe that they have
do,
already.
And I think they already have that in place.
I don't think they have. We don't have a certification, but from what I understand from their system, it is within the standards that would be able to be certified.
Yeah, the pump house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe you're right.
But the other 2 are older and don't have that. They would have to do major work to get to that place.
For sure.
Point. So I guess that's one of the reasons we never really addressed it, is we had just the 3, sometimes just 2.
Well, but we should have that in place because if anybody else, I don't know that we've got capacity for another car wash, but if somebody comes and wants to do that, it would be better to have it in place ahead of time.
I can put a note to come back at another time with
Yeah.
that, but not have it affect what you decide tonight.
Agreed.
So
Okay.
sorry, what exactly are we saying to bring back?
To bring back, and we had asked for this before, and I'm not sure, I guess we've had too much on our plate to get it done, but to have the standards, basically the same standards as like San Antonio has for what the certification process and requirements are for car washes. there's a certain amount of reuse and a certain amount of water usage that they've got as a certified car wash that reduces the water consumption that would allow them to continue to operate in the later stages of drought.
Okay, so if they didn't have these qualifications, they would have to shut down in,
Or ask for an
for example,
exemption.
stage 5.
Right. We don't have that in our policies right now. I thought we had it for stage 4 that they had to ask for an exemption. I thought that was actually in there
Let's see here.
in our ordinance.
They've came to us in the past with a letter.
Yeah.
And I think
I believe that's in the
it's
ordinance
stage
though.
4.
This would be part of the UDO as far as new construction.
Yeah, I guess I don't. That's one thing I don't understand is how do we, as we have these updates, how do we include that into the UDO in terms of regulations and that kind of thing?
I don't know. I'll give Brown about that and talk to some city, but I don't know if those design requirements are, because they're specific use design requirements. I don't know if those belong in the UDO. UDO is more generic as far as.
The idea is we need to make sure that we find a way to keep any ordinances aligned with the UDO, just like our ordinances should have been aligned with the CZO.
Correct.
So it's finding out how does that interplay happen? How do we ensure that?
Yeah, but the UDO is not. That's what I'm saying. The UDO is not. It's going to allow.
You're missing what I'm saying.
A myriad of uses.
Right. So how does the interaction happen between the two? How do we update it, and what is the review process to make sure that it doesn't conflict? This is a little thing. I don't see that this is going to conflict, but if we don't put the policy in place now for the little things, we're going to miss it for the big things, and we're going to get out of sync pretty quickly.
Okay.
So that's the point.
If stage 5, if you've got to get a 44% reduction, I mean, how can we run car washes? I mean, you go to the car wash, you get a car wash at stage 5, it's going to be the same car wash you get at stage 1, uses the same amount of water.
Right.
So they're not getting a 44% reduction. They're not getting any reduction. They're using exactly the same amount of water as they use.
Yeah, they
We
would
don't have
argue-
any restrictions.
Well, but the way they would argue that, and the reason San Antonio has its application process and its permitting process is that they start from day one reducing their usage by utilizing recycled water, and they use as much as 40 to 60% recycled. And so they're saying, you know what, from day one, we're recycling our water and we're helping overall reduce your water consumption. So again, keep in mind that you're thinking about it's really based on your pumpage capacity, not based on what you're currently utilizing, but it's about, okay, if we had allowed you 1,000, we'll just use really small numbers because it's easy, but 1,000 gallons a year at a pump, you've got to now, over that year, instead of using 1,000, you're only going to be allowed to use 600 because you're in stage 4. And that's if you're in stage 4 for the entire year, because all of this gets averaged over time. So it's not that you have to reduce it by 40% for the entire year. It's 40% of your pumpage capacity for the given period of time of the drought. This goes back to that research RESPEC did for us, where they looked at how many water rights do we have, what are the current EAA regulations, how are we pumping on during droughts. In a worst case scenario, if we did have a stage 4 that lasted much longer than we've experienced in the past, where would we be, et cetera? And that's kind of how we determined, well, what is the correct number of water rights that we want people to dedicate. And the summary of their study was that the number that we had was probably a little conservative, but they recommended not changing it. So that's the good news, is that every time someone develops and has to bring water rights, we're requiring the right number based on our experience with droughts, et cetera, to hopefully provide us enough of a cushion so that even if we're in a stage 4 for an extended period of time, that we still have enough water rights. That's just kind of condensing down that report that they did for us. That's kind of what it showed. So water, I mean, to your point, when we approve new uses, and I don't want to belabor this because, again, the existing water, we'll have to look at that policy. We just need to look at, are they grandfathered on some level or not? They may not be we may not be able to make those improvements, but we might be able to say, well, if you don't make the improvements, then during a stage 4 or 5, you just can't operate. But those are all policy level decisions that y'all will need to make. But we'll look up the details and provide those
Well,
to you.
my question is, the commercial, if you're in stage 5, the threshold is 40,000 gallons. And then you charge a surcharge.
Right.
For every gallon above that. Are we doing that with the car washes?
Well, that's what tonight's about.
That's what tonight's
So,
about.
That's up to us.
yeah, so we already do have a graduated fee, and the graduated fee is charged. I mean, that's the way we do our billing. So if someone uses more, they pay more. This is taking that graduated fee and really amping it up during a drought and saying, and establishing specific.
But it seems like if we're charging them according to this, that their prices should be going up for a car wash when you get in stage 5,
It possibly
because
will.
they're paying a hell of a lot more for the water.
Yeah, they may, or they may just
They're
have
not.
close.
Their prices are the same.
And that way they make the decision on their own.
Or maybe they pass it along twice and pocket half of it and blame us.
I will say the pump house is not our top water consumer.
Right.
I think they're in the top 5 though. I want to say they're number 5, but I'd have to look again. We went through and averaged usage by commercial versus residential.
That's what this.
We looked at who the top 10 users, the top 20 users, where they hit the threshold and everything, and that's where we based the thresholds on. Our commercial businesses actually don't use a whole lot of water overall, but certain businesses use a lot. And unfortunately, it's not those car washes. The other two don't use it near as much. But one of our retailers uses a lot of water.
Okay.
And we have not implemented a surcharge
question?
yet,
Okay.
so that's why you may not see a reflection of price change.
I'll recognize you, Bruce.
Mr. Mayor, that was my question. What exactly is the surcharge amount?
Yeah, that's-
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Okay, I'm
Yep.
sorry.
That's all right.
We got I said.
This is the representation of the actual usage that we had per year and the 2024 year-to-date. The average residential, the top 5% was at 40,000 gallons, and the top 10% was 33, but 58% of our residences use under 10,000 gallons. So that's where we came up with the thresholds that we were suggesting. You can change them.
12,000, not 10,000, right?
Yes, the threshold for 4 and 5 is 12,000.
And 58% or 10,000 or less.
I'm sorry, say that again?
58% use less than 9,000 gallons.
Yeah, actually, that's true.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
And then in the commercial, the top 5 use 150,000 gallons. And
Now,
the top,
these ones on the right, these are like total for the year, right?
yes,
Okay, not monthly averages. Gotcha.
no, those are the actual usage in 1,000 gallons.
And that's calendar year.
Yes. 2020 is an anomaly, of course, because so many people were at home.
Hold on.
So
That's not, is this calendar year? It's not.
These are calendar years.
So you're telling me for October, for 2024, from January to October, this is all we've used?
Yes, we did
On
pretty
average
good.
per house.
This isn't October, it's September.
September.
Yes.
The average residential user has used 53,000 so far in 2024.
No, this is the total usage that we had pumped. It's not necessarily their usage, it's what we pumped out of the wells.
53,258,000.
I was reading 120,000 and canceling out the thousands at the top.
Gotcha.
My mistake.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. It's not, this isn't averages, but that's
Maybe
for all
million.
of 2024. Okay. I thought it was for our fiscal year, which would have started October 1st.
Right,
Okay.
no, we, all of the reporting we do is by calendar year, so that's how we track everything.
So really, I mean, looking at it, even though we're about to go into stage 5, for 2024, we don't look too bad.
Correct,
As far as
we're
our-
down in usage for 2024.
We're almost half of what we were last year.
Through the driest months.
We still have 2 months to go, yeah.
Yeah.
Not the dry months. Yeah, I mean, not the growing months.
And this is when people are trying to hopefully reduce their water usage so they reduce their sewer bill.
Not in October.
Yeah.
October's the month they throw out. You have, that's what happens.
Well, you throw out the highest, and sometimes it's October, sometimes it's January, depends on who you are.
But I will say, because of the smart meters, especially Patricia has been able to look and see where people, we get alerts for continuous flow. She looks at it, tries to determine if it looks like they have a leak or they're watering when they're not supposed to or whatever. And she makes calls and she talks to them, and she, especially the people with leaks. I mean, that's something they would have had to pay for over a long term without knowing in the past. Now they know sooner that they have a leak and they can fix it. And she's been able to probably, I don't know how many thousands of gallons, we haven't looked at that, but I would say about 20 to 25 people in the last 2 months have.
And that could be several 100,000 gallons just for those
Correct.
people. All right.
Moving on.
You know, that's important that we're giving this kid glove care to our citizens, because you know you can't get that in San Antonio. They wouldn't call you by looking at your individual things.
Right.
Well, this AMI project has been a great investment that y'all have made. I mean,
Right.
it really has been it's paid dividends.
And the way that staff is using this, to Phil's point, to proactively reach out and coordinate with people, that is the essence of small town Texas.
That's at your direction.
Thank you.
You're trying to do what y'all like us to do. So.
And
And
good
then-
staff.
And good staff.
So, and on this, this is a comparison of what would happen with the bill that was 36,000 gallons for residents. In the first would be the normal charge, so it would be $277.44, and the surcharge you adopted through the fee schedule is $7.89. So this customer would be 16,000 gallons, so it'd be the 16 times the
Okay.
789
Hold on.
in the bottom tier.
This is with, let's start at the, I'm sorry,
The top is without the surcharge.
I know I'm lost with this. Let's start at the foundation. This is based on a 36,000 gallon usage in 1 month, correct?
Right.
And to be understood, that is you'd be in the top 5% if you use that much water in a month,
Right.
because the average user uses less than 9,000 a month.
Gotcha. And so what you're saying is the first 5,000 gallons is at tier 1. The second 5,000 gallons is at tier 2, correct?
Right. And
Okay.
this is the utility rates on this side.
Yes, understand.
Okay.
I just didn't have that foundation.
Right, so this person, and if on their August bill, it was an actual August bill, and their bill was $277.44 for water. But if we had had the surcharge, it would have been an additional $126.24 or $403.68.
Based on 36,000 gallons.
Right,
Because we'd go through the normal bill, charge it all out, as you can see in that lower table. And then anything over 20,000 gets charged at the surcharge rate. And that's just an additional fee, penalty, if you want to think about it that way.
I'm sorry, how does that work now?
So the bill gets calculated as it normally would, and you can see that they're identical. The top bill and the bottom bill, all the way up until you get to tier 5. And then below tier 5 in that bottom bill, you see the surcharge line. And that's where you're saying they took the number of gallons that's over 20,000,
Oh, gotcha.
16.
16,000.
which was 16,
Okay.
and they multiplied it by 789, and that gets you to 126, which is your penalty. Now, the question I have is, it's over 20, so this is residential though?
yes, and this is stage 3.
Okay, so because stage 3, the limit would be 20,000.
Right,
See here.
Right.
And for commercial, it'd be 80,000. Okay.
and then the next screen is if it was stage 4 and 5.
So this is the exact same usage, same calculations, but now because it's just all the gallons over 12,000 instead of 20,000. So that penalty goes up by 60 or 70 bucks.
And then, like I said, this was an actual usage from one customer, that because we wanted to make sure we had represented what was over that threshold. And this is what it would be in those 2 stages or 3 stages.
Okay.
And then the next slide would be a commercial in stage 3 and 4. We just added the surcharge.
So
let's,
again,
I'm
it's
sorry,
not
let's go
used-
back on the residential. You said 36,000 would be in the top 5% of usage?
Yeah.
Okay,
'Cause
these
your-
would be
'cause your
good.
average usage is about 9,000.
Okay, this would be good graphs to do more detailed, but that's fine. And then on the second one, the average usage for commercial is how much?
Same. It's about, so going back to this slide, this shows you on the top left is your average residential usage. You can see the top 5% is around
Thank you.
40,000. That's that 36,000 user. So they're in the top 5%. The top 10% is around 33,000. And then 58% of the customers are in that 9,000 or less. So over half of your customers are use less than 10,000 gallons a month. And then the same thing is kind of true of commercial. You have top 5%, they're using 150,000. Top 10 is 80,000. And then 61%, so slightly more, are using less than 10,000 gallons.
But Scott, here you say average residential usage is 5,000 gallons a month. You don't have that for commercial. Do you know what the average for commercial is?
I don't.
Okay.
Do you know, Kathy?
No, because I didn't get the average for them because we always concentrate more on the residential. I should have, but I didn't.
But looking at these thresholds, so you're in stage 3, you'd have your thresholds would be 20,000 and 80,000. And then stage 4 and 5 would be 12,000 and 40,000. And that's what the bill calculations that she was putting together were. It's taking an actual user that falls in that top 5%, whether it's residential or commercial, looking at an actual bill and then how their bill would change if this had been in place.
I'm going to assume that restaurants, they have to be high up in there, right?
It
commercial
depends on the restaurant.
Healthcare has to have it constantly. Whether the assisted living homes, the medical clinics and all that, that's a constant.
And I think we have to be careful about exposing customer data. So that's why
Right.
if you want to dig in a little bit more, I think that would be like if you want to get down to an individual basis, we just.
Well, I remember the discussion last time when we talked about this. There are different kinds of commercials. You can have a commercial, just one of our retail guys going up and down the street. And then you also look at the healthcare or you look at a restaurant, which I would assume, but is there any, and I realize we need to curtail everybody, but some of those, I guess, in my mind, there has to be some understanding that, like, I'll throw in the Overhaul. I can't believe that they use a lot of water now.
So they wouldn't be charged the
They
surcharge.
wouldn't, but then if they get pegged at the same penalties as restaurants that just by nature have to use a lot of water. And
Except if they don't go over it, they're not getting hit with penalties.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Are those top 5% you're looking at, are those healthcare / restaurants that normally, they're not water and gas, they're providing a service that's really hard to restrict water. You can't recycle water.
Will you go back to the other slide that talked about the averages?
But for comparing a healthcare to a restaurant, it's not an accurate comparison.
No, I'm not comparing. I'm saying what
well,
are those top 5?
I understand, but it's not an accurate comparison. No matter what, healthcare has to have water. Restaurants can get bottled water and go that route.
No, I'm talking about not drinking water. I'm talking about cleaning dishes.
Oh, yeah,
and-
yeah.
Yeah.
But healthcare, it's
So
constant.
if you look at this, 61% use less than 9,000 gallons. And then you've got your top 10% is over 80,000. So you've only got a 30% in between that 9,000 and 80,000.
I guess, is there some way that you could look at that top 10%? And again, I'm just throwing this out because, again, we've talked about healthcare and restaurants where there's this need for a lot of water in those. But, and there might be some other categories out there, but to have them have the same criteria that businesses that don't, it's not that they have a choice, they have to use that much water. There's no way they can recycle it. And so so when we get into the numbers, we're going to see how it's going to affect their bottom line each month. So I just throw that out for consideration.
Yeah. I honestly think with something like that, getting that far into the weeds, if somebody has a legitimate issue with that and a need for that, they would bring that to the city staff through Public Works up through the city administrator, and it would make its way to city council.
But then is city staff going to have the ability through this ordinance change to actually
to
do a
bring,
variance.
to bring it to city council for.
Oh, then they would bring those in.
If you want to do a policy change based on that, I don't see that there's, if you have to save water, you have to save water. And if you use more water because you have to use more water, then there's just a cost associated with that.
In the ordinance, there is a clause, I'd have to find it, but there is a clause where the city administrator as his designee can give variances when appropriate.
Yeah, it's on the last page.
That answers my
I think
question.
that was. part of- I
Variances.
think that's came from part of our discussion last time.
Okay, good.
You had a similar concern.
That was too long ago. I
Yeah.
don't remember.
Well, we'll
stuff
just make it so the city administrator can do.
Yeah, it says the city administrator may grant a temporary variance for existing water uses otherwise prohibited under this plan. If it's determined that failure to grant such variance would cause an emergency condition adversely affecting the health, sanitation, or fire protection of public or person requesting such variance, and if one or more of the following conditions are met.
That answers my question. Thank you.
You can interrupt if you have questions, by the way.
So we looked at residential. This is just the same thing looking at commercial. Again, taking someone that's in that top, either 10% or 5%. 10% was 100,000 gallons or 80,000 gallons or more. 5%, and there's 220 commercial customers. So 10% is roughly 22 customers that would be using 80,000, on average 80,000 gallons a month or more. And then 5% would be about 10 or 11 customers that are using 150,000 gallons or more a month. So we're talking about one of those customers that falls in that range, and this is what would happen to their bill in a stage 3 where the limit was 80,000 gallons and they've used 98, so they've exceeded by 18. That's where that $142 comes in on the table in the top right. At the bottom, over 80,000, 18,000 gallons, $789, $142. That's basically the penalty they would pay, because that's more or less what we're talking about. It's something to discourage use, and it's we're calling it a surcharge. It acts like a penalty. Surcharge for stage 4 or 5. We're saying stage 4, but it'd be applicable in both. Over 40,000, anything over 40,000, which in this case is quite a bit. It's 58,000 gallons, and that goes from $142 to $457. And I'm not trying to paint staff out. We just tried to use some general averages to try and get to what we think is reasonable, but ultimately, this is your job to tell us if we've hit the mark or how far off we are.
Mr. Mayor.
So I have concerns. I've been voting against the changes to stage 4 and stage 5 with new construction. I know the new developments bring water rights, but for already vacant land somebody wants to build on that has no tie yet to the city, they're not bringing water rights. Like if there's an empty lot here in town
You're talking about infill.
and they want to build on it,
Yeah,
they're not bringing water rights.
I don't think, are they? Or are they not? They're not?
No.
They're already in the city.
So here tying in to a new line, and we're in stage 5 water restrictions. That's why I've been going against it, because we're here trying to conserve water, and it's a concern.
They are tying into existing water mains. So the water's already there. The lines are laid there. They just get a new tap.
Yeah, but she's talking about water rights. So they aren't bringing additional water rights with them when they make that tap, unlike in the new areas, east of town where
Alsatian Oaks and all
these
that.
developers are bringing water rights. Here, they're tapping into our existing pumping capacity in our existing system. And what you're saying is, why are we allowing that to occur?
But we shouldn't, because the way we voted, we only said that the people that would get exempted were the people that brought water rights.
Right.
So if you own an empty lot and you're not bringing any water rights, then we shouldn't let them connect. We should say no.
I don't think that's.
I don't think we made that decision, but that is something that we can discuss.
And that's what Sheena's bringing up right now.
Yeah, it's a huge concern.
So wouldn't they have already brought it when whoever originally owned the
Uh,
property, maybe it came in?
No, not an
No,
empty
that
lot
would-
here in town.
Well,
There's nothing additional. Well, hold on. I'm sorry. Before I think Councilman Dyer had some comments on this as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to,
Stick to this discussion right now, and then we can expand it beyond this.
well, on the issue of the surcharge, I mean, if you have a business, whether it's a restaurant or whatever it may be, there's a cost of doing business. And when rates change, they have to deal with the change in the cost of doing business, the cost of goods sold. And it normally results in an increase in the price of the goods or service to overcome the change.
So
I mean-
I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. I apologize. I wanted to make sure that we finished out this one topic. I was asking if you had any more on that topic because I would like to close that out with Sheena and not just run over. And then we'll come back to, so do we have any other discussion on this topic specifically?
That's on the connection of new
On the
houses.
connection of new
On
houses, right? Yeah.
Basically.
I think Herb spoke that your opinion of not to allow those connections to take place.
That's why I think we voted very clearly.
No,
If
I
you
don't
didn't
think
bring
you'll-
rights, you can't.
no, you're wrong. We had discussed it, but I believe that I don't think that we had made a final decision, but the conversation was, I think
Well, we
looked at both
just
of them.
didn't differentiate between
Correct.
outside the city and inside the city.
Correct.
So if that differentiation needs to be made on a policy level, then that's something we can do.
Okay, so
That wasn't made the other night.
so I'm going to have Councilmembers weigh in now.
I think that the restriction of not allowing new customers to connect if they didn't bring water rights makes sense. I think it makes sense regardless of what drought stage we're in. Because quite frankly, it doesn't matter if they connect in January or July, they're going to bring the same amount of additional need for water rights to the city, no matter when they connect.
You're talking about not infill, but outside.
We
Infill
already
does not-
have requirements for people outside the city to bring water rights.
People inside the city
I'm
don't have to
specifically
bring.
saying infill as well.
Infill does not have to bring water rights.
They don't right now, but I'm saying I think that would, quite frankly, make sense because they are bringing need just the same as a new lot on the outside of the city is bringing new need for water. And I think that tying that restriction to, because like we had, you can't connect unless you bring water rights. I don't think that saying in stage 5 makes sense at the end of that sentence. I think that ignores the fact that they're going to bring the same need no matter what time of year they initially connect.
So let me ask for clarification on infill. Do they still pay the impact fee, right?
Yes.
Okay. So part of that additional from the impact fee can cover additional water rights. So what you're saying is you believe that they should bring water rights with the existing. We have the overall pumpage capacity, and that's really why we have them bring additional water rights. But I think with the existing, we only have, did we figure out how many total infill lots that we had? It's like not that many, 20 or 30 infill lots. Did we ever get the final number on that?
But it's in that range.
Yeah.
It's around 2,000.
And the impact fees are somewhere for the water impact fees. Do you remember what those are?
Well, I know we distinguish. Sorry, I was getting a text related to this, but we distinguish between.
I know, because I forwarded a question to
Major
Scott,
plats and minor plats. If it's a major plat, they do actually have to bring water rights, I think.
because I
Even if
forwarded
it's in the city limits.
I forwarded a gentleman one of our local construction people regarding tap fees and everything like that. And the homeowner was told that they got to pay $16,000 total for all the tap fees, sewer connections and everything. And they feel, they were irate. So I know they pay a good price right now.
I had to pay those fees. And I just realized why the fees had to be paid, and because it's not profit the city's taking, that's to help pay everybody who taps in the line has to pay a portion of that line when it was firstly built. And that's what those tapping fees are. But yes, we've always had to pay tapping fees, but that's different than what David's asking about this.
Are the tapping fees reimbursing the city for the pipe in the ground, or are they paying for us to go get more water rights if we're right at the edge of what we can support right now?
And see, what I'm bringing up is we discussed this, and in the new proposed drought thingy, There was, under stage 4, it said no new application for new additional, expanded, or increase in size water connections, meter service lines, pipeline extension, mains, or water service facilities of any kind shall be approved for immediate usage. That is struck through in the drought thing. That's a problem.
No, that's what but that's based on the input that we received at the last meeting when we talked
And
about
I was
this.
against it back then too.
Okay, but, all right.
That's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
it's good to express your opinions. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. It's just a concern because now we're teetering to going into stage 5.
Understand. Councilman King?
Yeah, my recollection is that what we voted on is that we were going to, through the end of the year, not worry about that, and then because it was going to be taken care of in this rewrite. But you're talking about a couple dozen properties that really, because these are single family, these people do have to pay quite a bit of money to tap in. We do want these infill lots to be filled in with people who can come in here and live here. And you're not talking about a lot of lots. You're talking about very, like you say, 24 lots spread over all the town. So those 24 lots are not affecting us. The
I'm sorry, I want to remind you all about something else that just occurred to me is y'all are also in the process of adopting a UDO that allows ADUs, and ADUs can be placed on a number of lots where there's already a home, right? If someone wanted to add an accessory dwelling unit to that lot that they already have their single family on, and that would be another water customer if you want to think about it that way.
Potentially.
I thought, related to that, I thought one of the criteria is they couldn't have separate meters. I thought they had to keep the same meters.
Correct. That's what we
Yeah,
had
but-
discussed.
Because we didn't want
It's still additional
Yeah,
use
to
unless
David-
they're
Well, no, it is, but
disconnecting their
if
irrigation system.
Well, someone with 5 kids and someone with no kids, there's additional use, and we don't charge by how many people live in the house,
Right.
except in what we're doing here, what we're talking about. We can put in these surcharges which curtail that.
And teenage girls versus teenage boys, because boys don't shower.
That's right.
There's
Well,
Yeah.
so in the interest of time, looking at the policy that's been given to you, I'm trying to be cognizant. I think y'all are bringing up some interesting policy thoughts. We've talked a little bit about car washes and what can we and can't we do with car washes? Can we prohibit them? Can they be grandfathered or not grandfathered? There's some things that we need to look at from a policy standpoint and bring back to you, just facts, so that you can make a decision there. And then you talked about whether what are the existing lots, the people who are building on these infill lots, what are they paying? What fees are they paying presently? How are those fees utilized? What other fees are we collecting from our citizens? Because I know we collect a water surcharge fee, right? That's intended to pay for or go purchase new water, new water rights. So there's other fees we collect that we can probably inform you about.
I think that, to your point, in the interest of time, let's look at approving the surcharge. Let's look at approving the surcharge, and the other. I think that we've already, unless there's anything that we haven't already covered, let's bring that back at another time, because we're not going to have this come up, a dozen times before that happens, or even a handful of times before that happens. So how about if we do the surcharge now and then come back, because we can do that within a couple of months, right?
Yeah. Well, so what I was going to suggest, what's your issue?
I was wanting to know if you could at least approve the restrictions for stage 5, because we have nothing now.
Okay.
There's-
So approving the stage 5 and the surcharges.
Well, what I would suggest is go through the documents as presented. To the extent that you have concerns about what's being presented that's there, not stuff that we haven't put in, like car washes and new home builds and that kind of stuff. I think those are things we can add later if you want to add them. But right now, if there's not heartache over what's being presented in the form of restrictions or changes, then we would like to see you adopt this version and say, okay, staff, we're going to adopt this, but we want you to bring us back information about, and then whatever that is. And I think so far it's only 2 items that I can identify from your conversations, which is the car washes and the new homes, new infill lots in the city proper where water rights are not brought.
Well, it's just not that. I mean, if you look through the paragraph that was struck out, it has new meter service lines, not just with new construction of that, but people that want another meter because of, they want to.
Sprinkler system.
Sprinkler systems, the additional new taps like that.
But how much water do we use? How much water do we lose when we tap in? If we tap into, yeah, it's minimal.
I understand, but people
It
are
is
going to
less
see
than
this.
leaving your faucet on.
People are going to see this and they're going to be like, oh, wait, why aren't there any restrictions? You don't care about our water conservation, all this, that, and the other. I'm looking at stage 5. People may think they need a separate meter for their sprinkler system right now. They really don't, because we can't use it anyway if we go to stage 5. See what I'm saying? I mean, it's
kind of common sense, yes.
It's reality.
So it's a problem that takes care of itself.
I understand that, but if we don't have it in black and white,
Right.
it causes a problem.
My point with this is that I think that there are too many on that. It is absolutely worth the conversation. It is absolutely worth digging into. We haven't studied it well enough to make a decision on that right now. It would be the wrong decision one way or the other. What if we follow what, and I believe that we should have this conversation. I'm not sweeping it under the rug. I'm saying that right now what we have in front of us that we need to get in place, which is our clear and present danger, is approving the stage 5, approving it in its current form, and then making sure that we have documented the exact concerns that we have so that staff can come back with some different options and we can have a full conversation about that in another meeting. Is that all right?
So we're only voting on the surcharge amount and stage 5 water restrictions.
And basically approving the ordinance that is in here that will come back and be revised as we have the other, because we have to amend the ordinance to put these into place.
Yeah, I know.
And if we make a decision on the other ones, then we're going to get it wrong. So it would be better to approve it to get these in place and then come back with the other ones. That's what I would recommend. If you don't, then make a motion.
How far down the line? I want us to set a suspense then that this be brought back to us for final review, approval, and all that. I don't want to kick it down the curb.
No, I agree.
I just need to,
We'll get to that point.
yeah, we just need to know what we're bringing back.
Absolutely. So we can bring it back. We'll get the list right now and we'll bring it back in December. Is that all right? Can we commit to that?
I won't be here, so that's great.
Sounds good. Okay, so let's capture the things that we're still concerned about. I'll make sure we do that after we, we could do that now.
Let's do it after.
Okay.
Could we do it in January? Because we only have one meeting in December and one meeting in November, and I think this is going to be a big discussion.
Okay. Would you be amenable to first meeting in January?
That's fine.
Okay.
I just didn't want to fall by the wayside and get lost in the tulies.
Based on that, I make.
Well,
Oh,
I have a few questions and comments relative to the surcharge. Mr. Dixon, on average, does our city's usage go up or down when drought restrictions go into effect currently?
Well, I think what the slide shows is they have gone down.
Typically,
I don't know
though,
how
what we've
much of
seen
that's
in drought.
because of the drought restrictions in the past. Before we had the metering, the ability to the AMI, there didn't seem to be much change at all. People just didn't seem to be aware or care or whatever. I don't know what the issue was. But since we've gotten the meters and we're actually able to accurately measure how much water people are using, because I think that was part of the issue is in some cases we were pumping a lot, but the meter wasn't registering what it was selling to the customer because it was so old and out of date. But I do think that this has a positive impact. If that's what you're asking me, I would say yes.
Where is
Actually,
staff
let me
proposing
back
the
up
money from the surcharge would go?
Let me go back to the item before that. So the question was, what is the typical city response? If you look at our graphs from RESPEC, typically during a drought, people have, we're not seeing it this year, but previously when we looked at it last time, they were using more during the drought because they were hand watering willy-nilly. And that's one of the reasons that we're looking at doing this is because people are like, oh, I'll just hand water and it doesn't impact me at all. This gives overall accountability to people that are doing it. So the typical reaction that we saw historically during drought times, people are using more water than when they don't. I wanted to make sure that you were clear on that. Okay, next one.
Where is staff proposing the money from the surcharge would go? Last meeting, the proposal was made to put it in the water acquisition fund.
And you could do that. You could direct that. But
I think that's one of the items that we bring back in January.
Well, where would it go until then?
Right now, it'd just be revenue. And
in the water fund.
now the surcharge, in the water utility. The surcharge, because it's a separate fee, I have to look and see if we can go back and run reports on just the surcharges collected, but I think we can. I'm pretty sure we can. So we should be able to do an accounting, but the revenue, as people pay their bills, that revenue goes into the water utility account.
So it could be either used to deal with the additional repairs that happen during a drought, or it can be used to reduce the overall impact, but it would stay in the water fund.
Well, you all are you're empowered to restrict those funds however you like. I mean, or not restrict them. It's up to you.
But I think that is part of the conversation that we need to have, and I had that written down too. That's part of what we need to do in January.
Okay. And then just if I can quickly say a few comments about the surcharge.
Please.
I've talked with a number of citizens about this, and the most common concern I've heard is that having a constant amount that triggers this kind of gives a higher allowance to people who live alone versus families. And that's a fair criticism. However, I think that using a citywide average as the benchmark actually is the most fair ultimately and leaves the least wiggle room to skirt restrictions. Because if you try to base it on current usage, even during the water averaging period, it'll result in stricter rules on people already conserving and looser rules on people who are using their water very liberally right now. My family of 4 uses 24,000 gallons of water in a year. My family of 4 uses 2,000 a month. The stage 3 restriction is talking about a surcharge on households that use 10 times as much as a family of 4. I'm not saying we're typical. We are very careful when using water. We treat it like it's scarce all the time because here it is. But even the 58th percentile of residential homes only uses 9,000 a month. So in stage 4 or 5, we're hitting maybe the top third of users who are using orders of magnitude more than a family of 4. I think these thresholds are reasonable. I support the surcharge and stage 5 restrictions as presented.
Great. Further discussion, or do I have a motion?
You're gonna make a motion?
You want to make a motion?
Make it, I'll second it.
I motion, shoot, I'm not remotely, can you do it, Phil? I'm not on the page.
I make a motion that city council approve the proposed amendments to the drought contingency plan to include the addition of the drought surcharge in the amount of $7.89 for water usage that exceeds designated thresholds and water reduction requirements for stage 5.
Great. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Further discussion?
Can we add on for Public Works to bring us back to us in January like we discussed?
I think that we can give direction to that. It doesn't have to be a part of the motion.
I just don't want it to fall by the wayside.
Absolutely. Totally agree. All right. Great. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Let me just finish this out as I make sure that we have on here. I have which budget it's going to go into. What is our exemption policy specific to car washes? What are the requirements on infill new connections and on the ones who are bringing water rights as 2 separate items? Is there anything that I missed on there?
The other item was you mentioned making sure that the requirements for water conservation, whether it's a car wash or anything else we're not contemplating right now, if we're going to have a design guideline and an inspection process, that match up with the UDO, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And where does the money go?
Well,
Yeah, I've got that on
first-
there.
That
Which
was
budget?
the first item he mentioned, and you said just which budget, but I mean, I think what y'all talked about previously was restricting the surcharge to water acquisition or any other purpose you want to try to restrict it to.
Okay, but we would like to have recommendations based on your assessment of our water system and our water
I
rights.
think water acquisition is a great place to put it, but it's either that or capital improvement, one of the two.
Okay, just if you'll bring back details on that and how the ordinance intersects the UDO. Okay, all right. Did I miss anything? Great. All right, next item is,
That cover everything, Sheena?
next item is consider and take appropriate action on canceling second regular scheduled council meeting in November and December, which is something we typically do. Do we need to have discussion on this, or do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we cancel the regular scheduled meetings for in November and December of this year.
Of the second meeting?
Second meeting.
The second.
Unless you want all of them.
No, I go for all of them.
No.
Second meeting in each of those 2 months.
Great. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thanks. Consider and take appropriate action on setting a date and time for special called work session for the review of the CIP projects. Do you have some recommendations on this, Scott?
Yeah, the dates we recommend are Monday, November the 4th, or Tuesday, November the 5th.
With the new company over the hardware store, my days that I'm available are either a Wednesday or a Friday.
I know that Friday doesn't work. That Friday of that week doesn't work.
I'm
sorry.
gone until the 9th of November.
You're gone until the 9th?
I get back on the 9th
Okay.
When do you leave? Or-
tomorrow.
Okay. All right.
He's out of here.
All right.
Do you want to hold off until, can we do November 15th?
Yeah, our regular council meeting will be the 13th.
Mhm.
Wait,
The 12th.
November?
Right?
12th.
The 12th.
The 12th is.
12th. I'm sorry, I was looking the wrong day of the week. The 13th is our first thing. That's on a Wednesday. The 12th is a regular council meeting. The 15th, which would be a Friday, we could do it that Friday of the week of the council meeting.
I can't do that Friday. I mean, the 15th.
Oh.
Fridays are real tough for getting people together.
Okay.
Would y'all be able to do
How
it
about
during the
Wednesday?
day, early?
During the day, I can't do the 15th.
But
No,
whatever
during the
day.
day.
Oh, any day, yeah.
I mean,
Can we do the day of the, you said Wednesday, the 13th would be all right?
Wednesday, yes.
We do that just with enough time to still make the spurs?
yeah.
I can't do the 13th.
So that
Jeez, Phil.
These are work, these are
Yep,
planned out work
gotcha.
days.
Do we want to look at doing an evening?
Well, can we go back to the 4th and 5th? So the 4th and 5th, are those completely out for you, Sheena, all day?
Yeah.
And Herb is not here.
What
That's
about
right.
the 12th? When we have the regular scheduled council meeting, we can't do it then?
No, because we're having the,
Well, what about earlier in the day?
I would have a hard time. Yeah, she can't do it on a Tuesday.
You can only do it on Wednesday?
Wednesday or Friday.
And you can't do it 13th, Phil?
How about the 20th? November 20th, Wednesday.
It's okay with me.
Yeah, that's good for me.
I'm
All right.
open. Does that work? Okay, what time?
1? Or
Yeah, you tell me if y'all want to do it in the morning or afternoon.
Just
It's usually-
afternoon is easier than
Yeah.
morning and.
It's usually 9 to 11 or 1 to 3 or something like
1 to 3 would be better for David.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
that. Or we can try to do 3 to 5, something like that.
That'd be even better.
You want to do
Let's do 3 to 5. Is that all right?
Shoot,
earlier.
1 to 3?
What's that? 1 to
1
3?
to 3 is better.
You okay with
Okay,
that?
yeah.
All right, I'll make it happen. It's easier for me later
This
too, but
is the
that's fine.
20th.
On the 20th, right.
Okay, wait. So
November
what
20th.
time?
November 20th, we said 1 to 3.
Yeah, I'm just being, either one's okay for me, but as far as, I know you guys
I'll
work
make it
full
all
time.
clear.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah,
that
I'll make it work.
Into your,
I'll make it work.
okay.
I'll take it off for lunch and work late, so I can do that. Okay. Does that work?
Yep.
I hate to push it so far, but I want to make sure we have
We'll
full
make it work.
participation.
Which hours did you settle on?
1 to 3.
3?
You don't need a motion on this, right?
No.
Just direction? Okay.
Is 2 hours gonna be enough?
We're gonna make it enough.
Yeah, what we'll be doing, just to clarify, we're going to go over the current CIP, the funded projects, the progress y'all have made, where we're at, the funded projects that haven't begun or getting ready to begin, where those stand, where the funding sources are. And then we're going to look at our bonding capacity for both the general fund and the utility fund. And then we're going to look at what staff has identified as priority projects for utilities and general fund. And then we're going to talk about your priorities and talk about, okay, what do we want to try to accomplish? When would we issue debt? That kind of stuff.
Sounds good.
Okay, let's get some pre-work out since we're extending it further out. Let's make sure that we get it out to council early so that everybody has plenty of time to look over it ahead of time, and that way we can streamline during the actual meeting.
Okay.
Right.
Can do.
All right, next item is staff reports.
So for this, as always, I'll ask if you have any questions, but there's a couple of highlights I wanted to hit. These are in kind of no particular order. One was in the community development report. She didn't mention the airport zoning. I did ask her to add that to her projects for future reports and updating, but I'll just tell you real quickly, there's not much to talk about because we're working on scheduling a meeting with
Judge Lutz.
Judge Lutz and Commissioner Sitter. And that's where that stands. We're trying to get a meeting with them to talk about their support of the proposed zoning. And then in the utility report, John and Kathy left, so they won't hear this, but man, we are really, really, really fortunate to have people holding these fairly hard to get licenses. So Chris got his B water license. There's only 799 B licenses in the state of Texas, and Castroville has 2. That's amazing. That's wonderful. And Daniel Paxson at the sewer plant, he got his A wastewater license. There's 1,156 A wastewater licenses in the state of Texas. There are many, many, many towns and utility districts across the state that struggle to get someone with an A license. Castroville has 3 now with Daniel. So we're just very, very proud of these men and their accomplishments and their dedication to their craft, if you will. So I've obviously personally congratulated both of them, but if you see Chris Henry or Daniel Paxson, pat them on the back. Those are not easy to get, and we're really, really appreciative of their commitment. On the library, I know, following the last meeting, Councilman Dyer scheduled kind of an emergency meeting with me. Like, what the heck is going on? Because there's a lot of issues at the library. Foremost is our technology. The computers are outdated and they have issues. Her report doesn't entail or doesn't have the very latest. I got some information today, an email today stating that they've got all the patron computers up and working. Now, I've had this report before. She's had BC3 come in and they've got them all working and then they didn't work again. And so I'm kind of holding my breath, but I'm kind of not. I think our ultimate solution there is to go get some new equipment. The computers are somewhat out of date at this stage. And they have applied for a grant. So that's kind of hot off the presses. They've applied for a computer grant, and they're also applying for a disability access, electrified or electronic door, open doors that'll make it compliant with ADA access. So they've applied for a grant for that. The other thing that's good news is that Beth has spent quite a bit of time this week preparing for the recertification of the library, learning a lot of great things. The Hondo head librarian in Hondo, Elsie Purcell, has been fantastic, really helping Beth get connected with the regional library directors and doing a lot there. So very appreciative of her efforts. But she did mention that this undertaking won't be nearly as bad as she thought it was going to be, and that she thinks she'll have all of the preparation that she can do will be done in November. She'll be done in November, but she won't be able to apply because that's when the window opens until January. But she's relieved to see that this is a mountain that can be climbed, and she's making progress. So very, very happy about that. There's an error on the sales tax report in the financial section. It's a minor error, but if you look at it, you can see that the year-over-year sales tax for September was higher. But then the little paragraph on the left says it was lower, and it's like
But it said in July.
Yeah, July was the collection date. So the July date was actually right. That was the date of collection because we collect it 2 months prior to when we receive it. It's spent, if you will. So the July date was actually, the reference was right. But it should have been, instead of a decrease of 1.73%, it should have been an increase of 16.3% or $23,126. So again, the graph is correct. You can kind of come to those numbers on your own, but I'll let you know that was corrected. And then just talking about some of the good things, utility, I think y'all mentioned it. We talked about this when we were going through the budgeting, that last year, not the current budget we're in, but last year's budget, when we adopted the utility fund budget, it was with the use of $1 million of their fund balance to balance their expenditures. And that was because we didn't want to raise utility rates. The good news is this year, our revenues, we will know after the auditor comes in and makes her final year-end adjusting entries, but we believe we're going to break even and be a little bit in the black in the utility fund without spending their fund balance. And that's something I had reported before, but I also said, kind of cautionary, like, I'm not sure. But right now we are $300,000 negative in that account. And our average monthly revenue is around $650,000. So that's more than enough to bring us up to positive. We also we have bills that we pay for electric utility or buying the electricity. But all that will offset to be about break even. So that's a great story there. And then court, since COVID, if you haven't been aware and just kind of looking at the budgets, our court really hasn't. We were subsidizing municipal court, which in my experience working in local government is very rare. Municipal courts usually don't get subsidized. That's something that the tickets pay the wrong way. This year we finally kind of caught up since COVID, and we did not subsidize the court. Their expenditures were $117,000 for the year, and their revenue is $154,000. So they're back in the black, and I think that's a positive direction for municipal courts. So that's good. That's all I have for the staff reports. If any of you have questions, I'll answer them.
All right, we'll start with Councilman Dyer. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, Councilman Norris.
No questions.
Councilman King.
No, other than I really like the information you're giving us is good. And a suggestion, I guess, if you wanted to write a letter to the mayor in Hondo and telling them about how their librarian is helping ours, that would probably be an easy thing.
Good call.
And we don't have to write it.
All right.
No questions.
Councilwoman Martinez.
Under Curl's report,
Mhm.
What's the status on our junkyard that they cleared out on? I saw there was notices, but I didn't stop and read them.
Yeah, so they did provide a verbal report or a written report on updates of the legal cases.
Mhm.
I didn't commit to the memory, but hold on.
It says that it didn't give an update on it. It's just that the fence was not lowered, operating repair shop
Well,
junkyard.
are you looking in the court cases pending?
Yes,
Because that would be the section that would be applicable, right?
yeah,
And this is the Geneva Street one, right?
yes,
Yeah.
because they cleared out and all their junk is still there, and there's some kind of white paper with something on it that's on their front door and on one of the front windows facing Geneva. But I didn't know if the city put that up there or.
I do think that I don't know. I don't know who put it up, but I do think there's an opportunity, and I'll just introduce Meg while we're at it. So Meg Santee is Dan Santee's wife, better half, and here he will be our regular appointed attorney for our city. He has 3 conflicts tonight, so his wife's been pinch hitting, but she's got a wealth of knowledge and experience. I was really enjoyed catching up with you today and learning about your past service in the city of Abilene, where she did all these different work for the city in a number of capacities, which I think probably aid you quite a bit in helping cities with their various issues, just having been there and been in the trenches and done those things. But I think this is an opportunity to circle back to Dan and say, hey, look, what do we do to get our municipal court to do something about this property? Because I think this and there's only 5 or 6 pending cases,
Mhm.
but each one of them are going to boil down to a civil case of some kind. We need our city attorney to advise us on, here's what you're looking at, guys. This is what it would take to prosecute civilly, and here's your anticipated expense and that kind of stuff. Because I think that's where we're at. We've done everything we can in this court. We don't. I mean,
Yeah.
We've
Well-
had. I think I reported last meeting. The chief and I had a meeting with the judge and the prosecutor, and we relayed your concerns and said we really want to see some activity on these. And
Well, especially now
What
that
do we do?
they've cleared out of the house and left all their junk and everything there. I mean, they have gone. And I mean, it's awful. It really is. And the citizens around there are like,
so what it has to take, though, is a court order to go in and remediate that property, and that's what we're waiting on.
okay,
And there's a secondary path to that, which is a civil path
Mm.
where we get an injunction, right? I think, and then we go in and we do it ourselves. And I know that Cynthia laid that out for us, but we have not
Yeah.
ever followed that path. We aren't doing that right now, but we could.
Yeah.
But there is a cost associated,
yeah.
and I think it'd be a good opportunity for Dan to kind of walk y'all through all that.
okay, yeah.
I'm going to ask you also for the next administrator report on that specifically. Will you get with Sheena and make sure that this is addressed on the report so that she can review it
Citizens
ahead?
can see that we're not
Right.
just letting it
Sure.
lie.
And this is about perfecting the report and making sure that we've got really good quality information that really makes a difference. And so I'd really like, this has come up a number of times and you've had to do additional explanation. I'd really like you to take some of that burden off of you ad hoc on the fly and get it into the report. I think it'll be more methodical, better information. Give us all a chance to look at that ahead of time and truly demonstrate to people who are reading the packet that something is actually being done about this. Because they don't always hear that. I think more people read than listen. And so I think that would be a good thing to do.
And then something that I thought of that's also on the same page, it's here somebody decided to put an in-ground pool in without getting a permit. And here we're in stage 4 water restrictions and filled it without a permit. If we could put something in the newsletter, just letting people know, hey, we're in this stage water restrictions, this is your restrictions, we're about to go into 5 and that,
So if we go into stage 5, there'll be a newsletter for
Okay,
sure. And
but-
we'll do a blast as we've done in the past.
Yeah.
That's the whole purpose of the yard signs that we have put out. And, I mean, it's
I understand.
bring awareness to it.
yeah, I'm just throwing it out there because here we had somebody that put an in-ground pool in and filled it without any permits or anything. So just
Okay.
trying to do our best to conserve. Okay, that's all
Great.
I have. Thank you.
All right, next item is discussion on future agenda items. So the ones that we've talked about today are the one for January. Will you make sure that, Sheena, will you go into the pending agenda list and just make sure that it's got all the details that you want on there? We'll do that. We'll target that for the first meeting in January and just, you can make that designation on there. The next is the deed restrictions for the historic properties.
You want that one.
Uh,
It should be very quick.
Okay. Why don't you work with Scott and figure out when that needs to go? Just put it on the pending agenda list and then get that scheduled when I say as soon as practical, as soon as it makes sense. And then the voluntary inclusion into the historic overlay. I think that needs to come back in front of council, but I think that's something that needs to go as a part of, because part of what they're going to do with Simple City is send out the blast. Everybody will get a notice of this is what your property is zoned now, and this is what it would be zoned under the new regulations. So there's potentially a way that we can tie that in. And when people see anomalies, differences, there will be some minor tweaks that are available.
Yeah, because the simple thing, all they would be doing is petitioning, if they already butt up to
Right.
the historic zone, they would be able to be included.
And I think what we're looking at doing is if people want to make it more restrictive, which is what this would do, they can make it more restrictive. They just couldn't make it less restrictive without going back through public process. Okay. So I think that is it. One thing I am going to ask you, a number of times, I like to give a lot of grace because I know that staff is doing a tremendous job here, but we've had a number of mistakes on the numbers that you've had to correct during the council meeting. So I am going to ask you, and I wanted to ask this in front of council to make sure that I'm not the only one that is this, what's the proper way, meticulous attention to detail on these things. I want to see accurate numbers on these. I don't want to see mistakes, and just holding staff accountable to a higher level of standard in terms of creating these things where they really make a difference and covering the information that we're asking for. Learning, we talk about it being in a growth mindset of trying to understand and anticipate what city council is going to want. And part of that is accuracy ahead of time. If we need to slow roll an agenda item so that we can get the accuracy in, then I'd like to slow roll the item until we are absolutely sure about that. And that's one of the reasons that we put the policy in place to get the material the Wednesday before, but we're not reviewing it deeply enough at that time. So I want to make sure that we're reviewing it and having accountability for that. Am I off base with that? Are you guys of the same mind?
I got another one to add, though.
Okay, yes, please. What else?
I'd like to see a discussion in one of the upcoming meetings about the Athens neighborhood stormwater abatement schedule. I mean, I think there's work going on. I see evidence of work out there, but I'd like to see a schedule that outlines what the specific abatement action is going to
Did I-
be and when is it going to take place.
Did I send the proposed schedule to you all? I know we talked about it. I have an email where we laid it out, and I honestly don't remember. But if I did, I'll go back and look and see if I emailed it. If I didn't, I'll email it out to the council. So we do have a kind of a schedule of activities based on that whole discussion.
Residents are asking me,
Yeah.
what's going on? When's it going to happen? I see there's work out there on Geneva Street, on the paper street. So, I mean, they're obviously doing stuff,
Yeah.
but I'd like to see a schedule so I can give it to the people who are asking for it.
Okay.
Great. All right. Anything else? With that, we're through the agenda, and we will adjourn at 7:33.
Did you give the holy rock to the church, one of the churches he said? No?
No one gave me the rock. I saw it in the report, but no one brought it to me. It's kind of heart shaped too.
The